Hey folks, Matt from artoftheimage.com. The Fuji X-H1, their video offering. Pretty cool little camera, part of the X series, but really aimed at video and making Fuji very competitive in the video market, which is gaining more and more of market share, as it were, of why people buy cameras and what they want in a camera. Now, you might ask yourself, as nice as Fuji is, why you wouldn't just still buy a Sony? And as much as I do like the Fuji, there are some significant reasons to buy, say, a Sony a7R III. That full-frame camera, which is mirrorless and seems to have really knocked it out of the park. That and the a7 III are the two cameras that Sony has just really excelled at, and they're the two newest ones. So we've got some reasons here, 6 or 7, why you might want a Sony a7R III over the X-H1 from Fuji. As nice as it is, it's not knocking the X-H1, but there are some significant benefits to the a7R III. First and foremost, larger sensor, more megapixels. So you've got the 42 megapixel sensor versus the 24 megapixel sensor in the X-H1. That's it's not quite double, but it's darn close. And so if you're looking for something with super high resolution, something that's moving into the competitive field against medium format even, the a7R III is the way to go here, and you just no doubt about it. Not only that, you have a 35mm full frame sensor versus an APS-C sensor, so you're getting a sensor that's bigger, and by nature of that, bigger, juicier photo sites on there, so cleaner performing sensor even at higher ISOs. The other thing that it has, the next thing, super high resolution composite. So that's where it's using the pixel shift. So it increases the resolution by about 4 times. You have to shoot the individual images and stitch them together, and it's post-production software, but it's pretty impressive results when you do it. This isn't something Fuji offers. This isn't a deal killer. It's not as big of a point as the larger sensor and the more megapixels, but pretty cool nonetheless. The next thing we have is longer battery life. We've got better battery life and more shots per charge in the a7R III. It's also a bigger camera, but that's an advantage. Always better to have longer battery life. Next up, hyperlapse filming mode. So with the a7R III, you can do slow-mo or hyperlapse, super fast shooting, which is stuff you can't do on the X-H1, at least at the moment anyways. You never know with Fuji, they bring out new firmware updates all the time. The next point is something that for a lot of people may be a critical point and be a deal killer for the X-H1, and that's the lack of a headphone jack. The a7R III has one, and strangely enough, Fuji left that out on the X-H1. I don't know why, because it's not like Fuji to eliminate something like that. I mean, if you're going to build a video-centric camera, you would think a headphone jack would be something you'd have on there. The a7R III has it, and the Fuji just simply does not. So we've also got bigger buffer for JPEGs, so you can get more JPEGs off on the a7R III before you're filling up the buffer than you can on the X-H1. What do I have here? We're looking at around 82 shots on the a7R III and about 40 shots on the X-H1. So those are approximate, but that's fairly significant, almost twice as many JPEGs in the buffer. And then higher ISOs. We've got a higher native range on the a7R III, but we've also got a higher extended range. So, and you would expect to see that with the full frame sensor versus the APS-C sensor, but again, advantage to Sony on that one. That is probably all of them that I would list. There's other ones probably on paper you could point out, but I think those are the most significant ones, the ones that you want to look at if you're looking between these two cameras, the a7R III and the Fuji X-H1. And you can let me know in the comments below. Is there one I've left out that you think is important? Is there one I've included that you don't think is important? What do you think about the X-H1? Would you consider it over an a7R III? Do you own either of these cameras? Have you happened to have shot both of them? Let us know in the comments below. Let's discuss this a bit. The X-H1 is a really nice camera, and I like it, but when we have something like the a7R III out there, and we're not comparing apples to apples here, obviously, It's kind of apples and oranges. But, I think people, when you're looking at something like the X-H1, it's not too much of a jump to look at something like the A7R III, or arguably the A7 III, which quite a few of these advantages do carry over. So anyways, let me know in the comments below what your thoughts are on this. Thanks for tuning in. Stay tuned. We'll be back soon here at artoftheimage.com.